In fact, it affects everyone. Everyone has an attachment style. It's just a set of learned behavior. And so, I like to clarify right off the top that we're not talking about a mental illness. We're not talking about a personality disorder. We're talking about a set of patterns that you learned for how to give and receive love. And so we all have a style.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another enlightening episode of Mirror Talk Soulful Conversations. I'm Toby, and as always, it's my joy to share this space with you. Today, we'll be diving deep into attachment theory regarding dating and relationships. Our guest is a certified attachment practitioner, author, and the founder of Securely Love. Welcome to the show, Bev. How are you doing?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here with you and your audience. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for, agreeing to be on this show. And I'm so happy that we're already connecting. And I'm looking forward to learning so much about attachment styles with you and the theory behind that. And it's a topic that affects a lot of us. And we actually have to get to the root of it before we to know what to do with it and how to, maybe get free from it or whatever. But I'm looking forward to learning all of that from you in this conversation.
Yeah, well, so you start off on a really good point because you say it's a topic that really affects a lot of us. In fact, it affects everyone. Everyone has an attachment style. It's just a set of learned behavior. And so, I like to clarify right off the top that we're not talking about a mental illness. We're not talking about a personality disorder. We're talking about a set of patterns that you learned for how to give and receive love. And so we all have a style. So it really impacts everyone.
Yeah, it does. It really does. I would like to start from your life journey because while preparing for this conversation, I found out that, your background in some ways influenced the kind of attachment styles that you had and the kind of relationships that you absorbed. But before we go into that, I would like us to try out our new formats, which is maybe not so new anymore, which is I have like about 100 cards here with questions, and it's just a way to know you better, basically.
Okay.
So with your permission, I would just like to pick one of the cards randomly and ask you a question to see
Sure,
if we get
let's
to
do
know you
it. Pick a
better.
good one.
A good one. So I have this bunch of cards here, and I'll just
Okay.
shuffle around and close my
Right.
eyes and
I
pick
have no idea
one.
what's coming next.
I have no idea what I've picked. I picked one card already,
Okay.
and I'm just going to ask you.
All right.
Okay. It's not a question, it's like a task. It's like describe a memory that feels like a movie.
Describe a memory that feels like a movie.
Yeah.
My gosh. I would have to say that giving birth to my first son.
Mm.
It was a difficult labor and I ended up having to go and have an emergency C-section. And so I was on the table and just like you would see in a movie, they take the baby out and they wrap him up and they bring it to you. Like I'm on the table and they brought this little baby to me. All the emotion that you see in a movie when you first meet your child, it's real. And it played out like that. Like, I think I just started to cry. I was so overwhelmed at the beauty of meeting my child after carrying him for 9 months and being in labor for 30 hours. Like, it's so overwhelming.
Wow, yeah.
And so, whenever I see a scene like that in a movie where a mother is meeting their child for the first time, I feel it all over again.
Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. Thanks so much for sharing that. That feels very like a very joyous moment that remains with you for the rest of your
Very.
life. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, very joyous moment. And I experienced it twice. That's the beautiful things. I have 2 beautiful sons. They're 18 and 20 now. They're men. And I experienced that same joy and that same like anticipation when I met my second son too.
Yeah.
And so it's just, oh, so my mind is flooded with these beautiful memories right now. I don't think there is anything more joyous than that.
Yeah, like going through the whole stress, I would say, I don't know how to describe it, the whole stress of giving birth to a child and seeing that fruits. Wow. Yeah. That must be
Yeah.
amazing.
And like it's hard to explain, right? Because the reason I mentioned my first son is because the first delivery, you never know how it's going to go.
Mm.
The first one was like, I was very nervous and then I ended up needing a C-section and it was a day and a half. And
Mhm.
so by the time you get to meet your child, you've
Yeah.
already been through so much. And like, you're praying for a healthy outcome, right?
Mhm.
And then they bring you this child and the emotions are incredibly intense.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, finally it's over and it's very
Finally, it's
successful.
over. He's here. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Wow.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. That's so awesome. Now I've gotten to know you a little bit better. Yeah, but I like us to rewind back to your early ages, when you were still a child, and I would like to learn from your life journey, like before you have the beautiful life that you have right now with your kids. I would like to learn how your environment or the environment that you grew up in influenced the kind of relationship or the relationship ideas that you had in the past.
Yeah, it's such a great question. So, attachment theory came out of work that was started to be studied in the 90s, but I think it's really only in the last decade that people are really paying attention to attachment theory and really looking at those earliest years that a child has in terms of interaction with their caregiver, how impactful it is. And so when I grew up, I'm certain that it was not being talked about. So when I was a young child, I'm almost 50 years old. So 50 years ago, when I came into the world, I'm certain my parents didn't understand these concepts of being emotionally attuned to a child, right? So I like to say that I think parents did the best they could with the information that they had. But as Maya Angelou says, when we know better, then we do better. And so now we know better. And so my job is to teach people how important this really is so they can not only feel better within themselves, but to also interact with their children in a different way. So my story doesn't start off as, a peaceful, calm story. My environment was very chaotic. It was unstable. It was unpredictable and at times very scary for me as a little girl. And so there were certainly things that I learned in terms of emotions. Like, for example, as a little girl growing up in my house, anger was not tolerated. So if I was angry, I would be punished. Like, go to your room. Like, we don't want to see this, right?
Mm.
And so I learned very young that I needed to disconnect from my authentic self in order to keep my parents happy. And so, when we find kids that come out of homes where there's very strict parenting, or the parents are emotionally unavailable, or maybe there's a lot of children in the home, or maybe there's mental illness, or maybe one or both of the parents are alcoholics or drug dependent. Maybe there's a high conflict divorce. I think, Toby, you can see that there's so many scenarios.
Yeah, a lot.
There's lots of scenarios where the child wouldn't necessarily get the emotional attunement that they need to develop healthy emotional skills
Mm.
early on. So the way in which your parents interacts with you in those earliest years is extremely impactful. So if I use my own example, what I learned was, for example, anger was not to be tolerated. So even if I was feeling angry, which is normal, we all feel anger sometimes, we all feel sadness sometimes, right?
Of course.
Emotions themselves are not good or bad, right? It's sort of, we ascribe a meaning to them, but they're not, each emotion has a time and place.
Mhm.
But because I felt it was obvious to my parents that they were displeased when I acted or I emoted a certain sadness, anger, frustration, I stopped doing that. So even if I was angry, I would try to put a smile on my face and pretend that I wasn't angry to please my parents.
Mm.
Now, children will always, these are very young children from 0 to 5. They will always choose attachment to their parents
Yeah.
over authenticity.
Mm.
Because when we're very, very young, that attachment to our parent is critical for our survival.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Because as humans, we don't survive if someone isn't taking care of us, right? We are dependent for years.
Mm.
And so a child just inherently knows I have to please this individual. Their love is important to me. So I'm going to, what's called self-abandon. I'm going to step away from my true authentic self. And so you can see that this would be, for example, the roots of some of the issues that we find with adults who grow up with people-pleasing tendencies, right? Where they're very focused on someone else and meeting their needs at the expense of their own. And, there's many children who don't even learn anything about emotions. They can't identify what they're feeling. They don't know how to communicate it. Many children are emotionally neglected. So they learn not to depend on anyone else. So they develop a sense of becoming hyper independent, like overly self-reliant. So there's all these scenarios that when we grow up can cause problems for us as we go into romantic relationships, but also problems with family members as we become adults, problems with friends, with colleagues, because these patterns that we've learned for how to interact with people, they basically ascribe a number of things like how much trust do I afford myself and how much trust do I give to other people around me? So someone who grew up emotionally neglected will not trust people around them because their earliest memory, and we're talking about subconscious memory, not conscious awareness, because most people don't have memories before 5. They can't recall, but your body and your subconscious mind recalls.
That's true.
So their earliest template is, for example, maybe they cried and cried and cried as a lot as a child, but they didn't get the comfort they needed. They were left alone a lot. So they learned that there was no point in asking for help. No one's going to help me. I have me, myself, and I to rely on, and that's it. And so these people grow up not trusting others and being extremely independent. So you can imagine when they go into a relationship, a romantic relationship, and they have a very hard time with vulnerability, intimacy, difficult conversations. They're very used to just pushing down their emotions and just repressing everything. So they don't even have the life skills to have these conversations. So yeah, it's quite problematic.
Yeah, wow. I mean, one thing that you made mention of that's making me think right now is that growing up as children, we always, look up to our parents and we are attached to them basically because they're the ones providing for us. I never saw it that way ever. And now I understand why, children are always like close to their parents and always want to do things to please them so that they don't cut off the source of feeding or living basically.
Yeah,
I believe that's like a survival instinct that we're born with basically.
it is absolutely. And children, again, children internalize things. All children do this, right? So if like a mother isn't giving you the love that you desire, children don't have the critical thought when they're that young to say, well, my mother's overwhelmed because she has 8 kids, so that's why she can't pay attention to me. Or my mother is addicted to alcohol, so that children don't have that capability. What children often do is they go, well, if there must be something wrong with me, or my mother would love me more. And so we grow up with these core wounds. We grow up with wounds, and then there's a whole variety of them, but it could be, I'm unlovable, I'm unlikable, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I will be excluded, I will be alone, I will lose my freedom. There's so many of these core wounds that we carry around subconsciously that impact our emotional patterns and the way that we interact with others. And so what's so interesting is that your attachment style is the biggest predictor for the quality of relationships that you will have. So if you and I are, let's say, dating, and let's say you're anxiously attached, and we can talk about what that means, and I'm avoidantly attached, very, very predictably, we're going to have some issues in the way in our expectations. You're going to expect this. I'm going to expect this. We're going to communicate differently. We're going to have different relationships to boundaries. And so this is where, and we're going to have different coping mechanisms. And so this is where in relationships, things can get very complicated because each one of us as humans, we see things through our own lens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Toby, what type of childhood did you have? Do you have fond memories or was it difficult?
I'll say it was mixed, but I mostly had fond memories, like, growing up with my mom and my cousins in the family at home, my siblings also. Yeah, a lot of fond memories, also a lot of, fighting among the siblings and
Okay.
with cousins or whatever. But it was just mostly a very, not so eventful childhood, I would say. Very simple,
Okay.
basic, standard here, I would say. Yeah.
Did you feel safe in your home?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me ask you another question now. As an adult, if you're having a difficult conversation, let's say with a romantic partner, what is your first instinct? Is it to step away and take a little space? Is it to sit down calmly and talk about it? Do you start yelling and get frustrated? How do you handle conflict as an adult?
But yeah, I think I mostly love to sit down and talk it out
Okay.
as an adult. Yeah, but sometimes I think I avoid conflict also. So maybe you could help me with that. Sometimes, I mean, when I'm not ready to sit down and talk it out, I try to avoid it. Like actions, like do things not to make you offended or just accept you as you are so that we don't fight. But if the conflict comes up at the end of the day and I feel very comfortable with you, I would love to sit down and talk it out. And yeah, let's see how it ends up with that. Yeah.
So, there are four major attachment styles, and we can talk about that, but it's very rare that people fall kind of smack in one category or another, right? Typically, we have a primary and then we lean in a direction of another. So it's very possible that you have a secure attachment, but you lean a bit avoidant,
It's very
right?
possible.
I mean, again, we don't diagnose. I'm not diagnosing you with anything. Attachment styles is just a set of patterns, right? If you wanted to actually learn more about your own attachment style, there is a quiz on my website at securelyloved.com. It's free. You answer a few questions and it'll tell you where you are.
Yep.
So I'll give you so that your audience knows sort of like a base rundown, and then we can go back to your situation a little bit. But basically there's two camps of attachment styles. There are those who are securely attached and those who are insecurely attached. So those who are securely attached came out of a home where they felt a sense of safety and security. They felt that not only their physical needs, but their emotional needs were attended to. So the parent or parents were emotionally attuned. They learned about emotions. They learned that they could communicate honestly and freely. They wouldn't get punished, that they wouldn't get hit, that they wouldn't get the silent treatment, like all these things, right, that are so punitive. But that if, maybe in your case coming, let's say from a securely attached home, maybe if you told your mother, I'm feeling sad, she would say, okay, why are you feeling sad? She would give you the space to express yourself and respond in a healthy way. And what that does is it allows you to build a level of trust in yourself and a trust in others, that others are going to communicate and respect, respond to you in a healthy way. Yeah. So it's like this template that you have in your mind, right?
Yes.
Now, those who come from homes where they're insecurely attached, they didn't have the same experience. So if we use the experience, for example, a young boy says to their mother, I'm sad. And the mother says, put a smile on your face or I'll give you something to be sad about. And puts their hand up like they're about to strike them. I've seen this before. I've seen this in grocery stores when I'm shopping. I've seen it like in just in my peer circle, like those threatening motions, right? Like a child cannot feel safe when they feel that they're being threatened or they're being punished or they're not being heard, they're not being seen. they're being neglected, their feelings are not being validated. So the only thing the child can do, they have two ways to deal with it. They can become over compliant, so pretend like it's not happening and be the perfect little son or daughter.
Yeah.
Or they can just become an island unto themselves. They become very avoidant. They stop asking for help. They stop interacting. There's like this faint helplessness. It's like, why would I bother to come to you with my problems? You're not going to help me anyway. So I'll just deal with it on my own. So these patterns get etched into our mind really, really early. And that's what we bring into adulthood. So in the world of insecurely attached, it's like a spectrum, a continuum where we have people who are anxiously attached on one side, avoidantly attached on the other side of the spectrum. And somewhere in the middle, we have folks who have a little bit of avoidance and a little bit of anxious together in one.
Okay.
That's called the fearful avoidance. And that's a very complicated one. The fearful avoidance generally comes out of a home where there was abuse. And so it's very sad, but a young child will crave the attention and love of their caregiver, as all young children do. But at the same time, they're petrified of them because the caregiver is harming them, either emotionally, psychologically, physically, or even sexually. And so what happens is that these people grow up and they become what we call the hot and the cold partner. 1 minute they want intimacy, the next minute, oh wait, I feel suffocated. Okay, wait, come back. Hold on, I need more space. They're always oscillating because their pattern is disorganized.
Yeah, anxious.
Yeah, they're anxious and they're avoidant, which is a really, really difficult mixture for people. And in fact, I spent the majority of my life as a fearful avoidant. I did not understand at all. I knew that I wanted love. I was married a very long time. I was married young. And I knew that I wanted love as most humans do, but I also knew that I needed a tremendous amount of alone time, that I was very on edge. And there were things that I was very uncomfortable with, like even some levels of intimacy really scared me. And it took, some time when I found this work on attachment styles years ago. It is what changed things for me in terms of making sense of, okay, this is why I do the things that I do. This is why I'm uncomfortable with conflict. This is why it's so difficult for me to have, a tough conversation, because I was so heavily punished in childhood. I didn't feel like I had any right to say, I'm upset. Here's why I'm upset. Because I just thought that would land as a punishment, and then that would be even worse for me. So I would just pretend that I'm not upset. And then, someone would say, are you okay? I'm fine.
Fine. Yeah. You suppress it all and just say, yes, let's smile and move on.
Smile and move on. But what's really interesting is that, and I know you know this, the body doesn't forget all of this chronic stress that you carry on. Even if you say you're fine and you're not, you start to actually, and there's more and more research in this, the body holds on to all of this stress. And it's so detrimental to us as humans. It's at the root of a lot of chronic diseases, chronic pain, it's autoimmune diseases. Like there's more and more research that's coming out now that's talking about the connection between authenticity in your emotions and actually your physical health, right? And the connections between the two.
Yeah, the body keeps the scores, and if the scores are bad, then it affects the body basically.
Yeah, one of my favorite books. Yeah. It's a tough read, actually. Like I've had to read it a few times. Like some of it's very scientific, but it's the body keeps the score. Well said.
Yes. Yeah. Bev, thank you so much for the explanation. I really appreciate that. Looking deep into it and also using your experience and personal, work with people. And that's making me ask myself right now, because you asked me some questions and I'm thinking to myself, I've never really analyzed my attachment styles. And there are a lot of listeners out there that are behaving the way they behave just without any explanation. They don't know what is happening. They don't know if their childhood is one that, influenced them to behave the way they do. And they don't even know the kind of attachment styles that they have. I'm going to place a link to your website in the show notes of this episode, and people could take a quiz. I also love to take that immediately after this conversation to find out my attachment styles. But what I would like to ask you right now already in this conversation is, how can we change our attachment styles? Or is it even possible? Like, if I find out that I have a fearful attachment and I want to become securely, not, what's the best attachment? Is there any good attachment style? I don't even know.
Yeah. So securely attached,
Yeah.
you're saying it right. That's exactly it. So I want people to know that, as we said at the beginning of the discussion, your attachment style is a set of learned behavior. It's not genetically inherited. It's not biological. You learned this behavior, right? Because you were watching your caregivers, how they treated you, how they treated others. And so just like anything else that's learned behavior, we can unlearn and relearn.
Yeah.
So the beautiful thing is that it's not a life sentence, right? It's not like, okay, I'm an anxious attacher and this is how I'm always going to be. No. So I would say to folks, and for you, go to the website, take the quiz. It's free. It's a great entry point of awareness, right? And then if you start to actually think about, okay, over the last month, maybe I've gotten upset 3 times, like really upset about something. Okay, what happened? I got upset, okay, when my girlfriend said something to me. Okay, well, why were you upset? This is what I like to dive into, is to figure out what's upsetting you in today's world, because that tells us where your core wounds are from your childhood that you're still carrying around. So maybe your girlfriend said something to you and you interpreted it as disrespect.
Yeah.
So maybe a core wound for you is, I feel disrespected. And then I'll ask a client, okay, well, tell me about another time this month you got upset. Okay, well, I was driving and some guy cut me off and it was very rude. And I go, okay. So again, you felt disrespected. Usually what we see is there's a theme that comes up with what's carrying an emotional charge. And so that gives us a roadmap for where we need to focus on changing that particular pattern in your mind. And there are ways that we can work with the subconscious mind, which is different from the conscious mind, to reprogram some of those core wounds. So
How do you
you
do that?
absolutely can change.
Okay. Do you have to, like, carry out some meditation practice? For example, if I take the quiz right now and I find out I have fearful attachment, do I have to start meditating? Do I have to start, maybe going for walks and doing breath walks? And what do I have to do, to change it to a secure attachment style?
So first I would read about it, because I want people to understand what this actually means. Then I would start to analyze what are some of the things, again, that are upsetting me. And next time you get upset, next time you find yourself complaining about something, pay attention to the thoughts in your mind. Okay, because your thoughts are very powerful. Most of the time we have thoughts in our mind and we don't even pay attention to them. All of this level of awareness is very, very important to heal your attachment style, right? To move towards secure. So, and it's very, very important in order for you to start establishing a level of trust with yourself and trust with others so that you can feel safe. Meditation is great for calming the nervous system. Going for a walk is great for a little bit of exercise and also calming the nervous system. And if you are insecurely attached, more than likely your nervous system is dysregulated. And more often than not, you're probably in a chronic fight or flight state, right? So yes, any somatic work, exercise that you can do to calm the nervous system, that's great. But the real work happens in the subconscious mind. So that you need to work with a specialist. I have a group of practitioners that I work with specifically on attachment trauma and reprogramming the subconscious mind. So That is the work that we do. And then the other part is sort of building a toolkit for you for the things that you might not have learned in childhood. Because if you came out of a home that didn't have a secure base, you probably didn't learn about boundaries. You probably didn't learn about emotional regulation. You're probably not very good at communication because it was never modeled for you. You know, if you come out of a home where it's like, we'll just sweep everything under the rug, you never learned how to have a difficult conversation. So that's the work that we do with adults is we sort of fill in the blanks. We realize, okay, you know, this person is having issues with boundaries. Let's talk about what that means and how to communicate.
Damn. Yeah. Well, I'm going to place the link to your website again in the show notes of this episode. Anyone wants to get some professional help, could reach out to you and some of your team members also. Do you also offer online services? Like if, for example, I'm in Germany and you're in the US, for example, is it possible for us to still connect and still work together?
It is. Thank you for asking the question. In fact, all of us work entirely online. So all the sessions are through Zoom.
Awesome.
And so, you know, I'm on New York time, but, you know, we work around schedules. So, we also have a free 20-minute consult that people can book if they want to meet with myself or with another practitioner as part of the Securely Loved practice, just to get a sense of, you know, whether we're a good fit and what your objectives are. So yeah, it's completely online. I work with clients all over the world.
Awesome. That's great. I mean, that makes the work easier for people all around the world who are listening now, who are very interested in this already, like to learn the attachment styles and also maybe learn how to change them. Yeah, that would be great. Yes. So when you were explaining all of that, I got some questions that were popping up in my head, and I'd love to just clarify them before we close this episode, because I mean, it's really something that I believe that is very important. And that is, for example, you talked about learning and unlearning. And I was thinking about, I've gone through my childhood days. I've formed some kind of attachment styles, and that led me into a kind of relationship. And then I'm experiencing a relationship, and then, you know, it led to maybe some traumas. Those kind of trauma also affects our attachment styles. Does it maybe worsen it, improves it, or, you know, change us entirely?
Yeah, so the mind is very malleable, right? It changes over time. So we talk about the first imprints of your major attachment style coming from your childhood, because when you're a little baby from 0 to 5, you're most suggestible. It's almost like your mind is like a blank slate. So it's like creating an imprint, right? Like a roadmap. So you're really suggestible. But as we go through life, we go through all sorts of positive and negative experiences, some of them traumatic as well. And so someone who came out of a secure home and then went through, for example, a very contentious divorce, that absolutely can impact your attachment style, right? And the inverse is true as well. Someone who came out of a home where, you know, they were predominantly insecurely attached, but then partnered with someone who was securely attached, they can grow to become securely attached as well. So it's not as fixed as we say it is. The reason that many people stay fixed in their attachment style is because they're unaware that they have an attachment style, and they're unaware that they can do anything to change that and to grow. But once you know that you can, there's no reason that you can't move much more towards a secure attachment.
Yeah. And I also believe we're also mostly unaware that our attachment styles is one affecting our relationship. So we don't even bother to think about it. We think, oh, it didn't just work out for reasons. It's not my fault. It's maybe not his fault. Let's just move on.
Yeah. And, you know, so it's very important for all your relationships, and especially a relationship to yourself. So someone, for example, who is anxiously attached, they're always concerned about someone else's needs, right? They've got very low self-esteem. So they have a low regard of themselves and a high regard of someone else. So, you know, they might even be in distress if they phone a friend and the phone says, oh, listen, the friend says, listen, I got to call you back in 5 minutes. Someone's at my door. And then the friend doesn't call back. Maybe the friend forgot, got busy, who knows?
Yeah.
Person who's anxiously attached is going to start to run a program in their mind that says, Why didn't they call me back? Did I say something wrong? Did I hurt their feelings? Are they mad at me? Maybe I should just go show up at their house and make sure everything's okay. I don't know. I can't calm down until I know everything's okay. They must be mad at me. I must have said something. This is what happens, is because these patterns, these thought patterns attach. And so that causes you such a tremendous amount of distress. And people live like this for decades and decades. But you don't have to. When you're securely attached, you realize the person probably just forgot. Like, but you don't make it so big. But when you're dealing with like a person who's anxiously attached and they were the child who molded themselves into something, that they thought their parents wanted just to receive love, they're always chasing validation and reassurance from someone else. And they really don't trust themselves. So imagine how much your relationship to yourself would change if all of a sudden you were to be able to trust yourself and you would be able to realize, oh, wait a minute, those thoughts are not real. They probably just forgot. If they were angry at me, they would tell me they were angry at me. That's it. That's how a secure person will assess the situation. Now, on the same degree, someone who is avoidant will potentially sense a little bit of conflict with someone, and they might just completely run and hide, not respond to a text for 3 days because they don't want to deal with the possibility that there might be a difficult conversation. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's not good either, because you're not being fair to yourself, and you're also not being fair to others. Right. So yeah, I always say the relationship that you have with yourself is the first one that should be preserved. Right. And then, all the other relationships around you will benefit greatly from that.
Right, yeah. But the last question I have to all of this is basically, it's from what I'm hearing right now, like, working on the relationship with myself, if I'm able to be securely attached to myself in that sense, like loving myself and, being secure basically in the way I relate to other people. My question right now is, will it influence the kind of relationships or people that I attract to myself also?
Great question. Yes. So generally, like attracts like. So generally, people who are insecurely attached and emotionally volatile, they generally will attract other people who are in a similar emotional state. So what we often see is someone who is securely attached will attract someone else who is also mostly securely attached. Maybe they have some anxious tendencies, whatnot. But yes, it will. And so, we often hear about people choosing the same type of partner over and over and over. Yeah. That's because they haven't done the work on themselves, right? They haven't figured out, because as soon as you do the work on yourself and you grow from an emotional place, those people who you were chasing after for the most part are emotionally unavailable. They become really unappealing to you. Yeah. Right? So as soon as you become, firmly, I would say, in touch with your emotions and what it is that you need, you don't really have a lot of tolerance to deal with someone who is volatile, who's in, who's out. You're looking for someone stable. You're looking for someone who can connect with you at the same level that you're at. Yeah. Right? So 100% doing the work also means that you will find that I saw this in myself, and I see it in my clients, that you will experience a change up in friends, because some of the friends are still hanging on to, maybe you had some friends around that were really good. They were fun to party with, but really not at that emotional place that you now need. You've outgrown them, and that's normal. And the same would be said for your romantic partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Bev, I really appreciate speaking with you. The last question I want to ask is basically, I think I said that already, that's the last question, but I think there's just one more last question I would say. I'm just thinking of a listener right now out there who is in a relationship, a loving relationship at the moment, but the relationship is struggling because of, conflicting attachment styles. And the person that's listening to this right now, up to this moment, and it's like, what can I do right now to rescue my relationship, and maybe change my attachment style overnight so that I can be in line or in loving relationship back, because this partner is very wonderful. I don't want to lose this partner, but I think our attachment styles are really conflicting. Yeah. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, and that very much could be the case. So awareness is like, I always tell people, start with awareness. So do a little quiz, figure out where you're at, even if you have an idea, and read a little bit about it. There's beautiful videos on YouTube, like inform yourself a little bit. Then sit down with your partner and have a real, authentic conversation and start listening a little bit better. So there's no doubt that your partner, the same as you, have been communicating probably for weeks or months, right? So what is your partner complaining about? Okay, your partner's complaining about the fact that she's exhausted and has to work and do all the housework. Okay. So she's often complaining about the dishes. She's often complaining about the laundry. Okay. What's behind all that? Does she feel unsupported? Does she not feel seen? Does she not feel worthy? Does she not feel that you respect her? There's something bigger behind there. There's a wound that she's carrying that is being triggered by your action or inaction, right? So you might think, what's the big deal that I didn't do the dishes last night? Why is she making it such a big deal?
Yeah.
For her, it might be that she's asked you twice, and when you don't listen, she feels really unheard. And it's possible that she felt very invisible in childhood too. And so maybe this is a very painful thing for her. So it's important to start to realize that when we make things, small things into big things, it's because it's triggering a wound that we already have.
Yeah.
So honor it, right? So, there's probably 100 other things that she's doing or he's doing that are not aggravating each other. But there are a few that are, because it's touching on those wounds that are still there. Yeah. So making that connection back and having an honest conversation. So when I ask you to fold the laundry and you don't do it, it really makes me feel disrespected. Yeah. It's not about the laundry.
It's
right?
about the wound you are touching. Yeah.
Yes. And when I feel disrespected, that makes me want to run and hide because I feel like I can't rely on anyone else. Right? That's the level where you need to go to. And if couples can get to that point, then they'll realize that doing the dishes is much more important than just doing the dishes. Right?
That's very true.
Yeah. So when your partner is complaining about something repeatedly, please listen, because that's giving you all the clues you need. And you could even, say, okay, I see that, you've been complaining a lot about, again, the dishes, right? Yeah. You can actually say, what does that represent for you? Like, what does that actually mean? So be curious, right? Ask your partner direct questions. What we tend to see happen in relationships is, oh, the dishes again. Okay, I'll do it. Fine. Okay, the dishes. She doesn't stop talking about the dishes. And there's an angry response. But likely what happened in her childhood is that when she emoted, she probably also got an angry response. So it's a cycle that just continues, right? You got to break the cycle. Like we said at the beginning, when we know better, we do better.
Yes.
So if you know that this is actually more meaningful than just dirty dishes, then honor your partner by being curious enough to figure out what is that actually about, and then helping to break that cycle.
I love that keyword, honoring your partner and break those cycles. Yeah. Speak, have open conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. It's been so wonderful speaking with you. I'm going to share the link to your website in the show notes of this episode so people can take a quiz and get to know their attachment styles, and also, maybe reach out to you also, to be able to maybe get some counseling. I guess all the information available on your website too, right? Or is there a particular way we could get across to you? Maybe write you an email or send you a DM or something?
Well, my website has all my social media links. We're on Instagram, we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn. But my website, securelylove.com, you can do the quiz, you can get the free bookings, you can get my links to my socials. So that's a really good central place. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought-provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.